Well, I'm back from taking pictures of a very beautiful and memorable sunrise. We're at Numbers chapter 35, verse 5. And you shall measure from without the city on the east side 2,000 cubits, which would be 3,000 feet, and on the south side 2,000 cubits, and on the west side 2,000 cubits, and on the north side 2,000 cubits, and the city shall be in the midst. This shall be to them the suburbs of the cities. Notes. Now, along with the 1,500 feet surrounding these cities, a further measure of 3,000 feet was granted beside that. Buildings on the inner grant might be sold by the Levites, but none of the land outside of that. Verse 6. And among the cities which you shall give unto the Levites, there shall be 6 cities for refuge, which you shall appoint for the manslayer, that he may flee thither. And to them you shall add 42 cities. Notes. Now this actually refers to an individual who kills someone by accident. We'll get into willful murder here in a minute. But as for this, these cities were not for actual just people who go out and kill somebody. The manslayer could reach one of these cities, and the relatives of the victim could not touch him. He was to stay in this city of refuge until the death of the high priest. When the high priest died, the man was free, and by law the victim's relatives must not bother him. The avenger of blood symbolized the law. It demanded the death of the manslayer. The death of the high priest satisfied this claim and liberated the manslayer. Now, compare this to Christ. His death, not his life, rent the veil and freed the sinner from the curse of the broken law. Now, similarly, the death of the lamb, not its spotlessness, redeemed the lawbreaker of Leviticus chapter 4. The manslayer was then at liberty to return to his possession. Now, when Israel shall look upon him whom they have pierced, it will then be revealed to them that his death restores them to the land and the family of God. Verse 7. So all the cities which you shall give to the Levites shall be 48 cities. Them shall you give with their suburbs. And the cities which you shall give shall be of the possession of the children of Israel. From them who have many you shall give many, but from them who have few you shall give few. Now every one shall give of his cities unto the Levites according to his inheritance which he inherits. And the Lord spoke unto Moses, saying, Speak unto the children of Israel, and say unto them, When you be come over Jordan into the land of Canaan, then you shall appoint you cities to be cities of refuge for you, that the slayer may flee thither which kills any person at unawares. Notes. Basically, you can take the word unawares and place accidentally right there. Verse 12. And they shall be unto you cities of refuge from the avenger, that the manslayer die not, until he stand before the congregation in judgment. Notes. Now after the high priest had died, if it was felt by the authorities that a trial was necessary, one could then be conducted. Verse 13. And of these cities which you shall give, 6 cities shall you have of refuge. You shall give 3 cities on this side Jordan, and 3 cities shall you give in the land of Canaan, which shall be cities of refuge. Notes. Now 3 cities were to be on the east side of the Jordan River, and 3 cities basically on the west side. Verse 15. These 6 cities shall be a refuge both for the children of Israel, and for the Gentile, and for the sojourner among them, that everyone who kills any person accidentally may flee thither. Notes. Once again, the word accidentally has been placed in the place where unawares should actually be. Now those 6 cities were actually Kadesh, Golan, Shechem, Ramoth, Hebron, and Bezer. And now we're getting on to the willful murder that I was actually talking about. Verse 16. And if he smite him with an instrument of iron so that he die, he is a murderer. The murderer shall surely be put to death. Notes. Now in other words, there was absolutely no refuge for murderers, no city especially. Verse 17. And if he smite him with throwing a stone wherewith he may die, and he does die, he is a murderer. The murderer shall surely be put to death. Or if he smite him with an hand weapon of wood, wherewith he may die, and he die, he is a murderer. The murderer shall surely be put to death. The revenger of blood himself shall slay the murderer. When he meets him, he shall slay him. Notes, this is of course talking about the relatives or friends of the one murdered. Verse 20. But if he thrust him of hatred, or hurl at him by lying in wait, that he die, or in enmity smite him with his hand, that he die, he who smote him shall surely be put to death, for he is a murderer. The revenger of blood shall slay the murderer when he meets him. And that's as plain as it can be. No murder was actually allowed. Verse 22. But if he thrust him suddenly without enmity, or hath cast upon him anything without laying of wait, or with any stone wherewith a man may die, seeing him not, and cast it upon him that he die, and was not his enemy, neither sought his harm, then the congregation shall judge between the slayer and the revenger of blood according to these judgments. In other words, if it is believed that it was accidental, or it is told that it is accidental, a trial was to actually be conducted. Verse 25. And the congregation shall deliver the slayer out of the hand of the revenger of blood, and the congregation shall restore him to the city of refuge, whither he has fled. And he shall abide in it until the death of the high priest, which was anointed with the holy oil. Notes. Now once again we have this typology. Jesus was our high priest. His death satisfied all claims against us and actually gave us our freedom. All of this is typology. Verse 26. But if the slayer shall at any time come without the border of the city of his refuge, whither he has fled, and the revenger of blood find him without the borders of the city of his refuge, and the revenger of blood kill the slayer, he shall not be guilty of blood. Notes. Now, basically, if the individual leaves the city of refuge before the death of the high priest and is killed by friends or relatives of the victim, they will not be charged with any crime. Verse 28. Because he should have remained in the city of refuge until the death of the high priest. But after the death of the high priest, the slayer shall return into his own land of his own possession. Notes. And obviously he would be protected by the law of God. Verse 29. So these things shall be for a statute of judgment unto you throughout your generations and all your dwellings. Notes. Well, rather until Christ would come, who, as our high priest, would fulfill all obligations, and thereby making moot and invalid these particular laws. Why is that? Because Christ satisfied all the requirements of the law in every single respect. He did so by his perfect life. As well, he satisfied the demands of the broken law, of which all were guilty except Christ, and did so by dying on the cross. Galatians chapter 3, verse 13 and 14. So when a person accepts and receives Christ as one's personal Savior, all the claims of the law that are against that person, they're just simply not even there anymore. Why? Because the blood of the Lamb covers all the multitudes of sin. Verse 30. Whoso kills any person, the murderer shall be put to death by the mouth of witnesses. But one witness shall not testify against any person to cause him to die. Notes. Under the law of Moses, there had to be 2 or more eyewitnesses to the crime before the person could be put to death. One eyewitness was not enough, and this actually shows the high value that God places upon a human life. We must pick up at a later date, where I will do so at Numbers chapter 35, verse 31. Thank you once again.